What's up, fam? It's your boy G-Man, and you are listening to the Superhero Brothers podcast. Guys, on today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the highly anticipated film that kicks off Marvel Phase 5, which is Antman and the Wasp, Quantumania. Now, I can't do this by myself because I had a really dope group of guys come on to the podcast. And you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can already see one of my boys came in. That's my boy, Kyle Pickett. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Good. How's everyone doing?
Dude, they're good. They're good. Bro, this past Thursday was crazy. Like, holy cow. So we're going to start off with a quick intro about yourself, Kyle. We got some quick lightning round questions, if you will. So first and foremost, you Team Marvel or you Team DC?
Very much Team Marvel.
Very much Team Marvel. Okay, so this is right up your alley.
Yes.
Who is your favorite superhero?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with Iron Man.
You go with Iron Man. I like that, dude. For those who watch on the YouTube channel, you can see I'm already repping the Iron Man shirt. So, that's 2 for 2 for Kyle. You already see why we're boys. And then last but not least, what has been your favorite superhero film? So this can be MCU. Well, I guess we got to eliminate DC because.
That's just tough. I think either Civil War or Endgame. I think both of those I go back and forth on those.
So those are heavy hitters, man. Those are heavy hitters. But with that, we just want to do a quick intro to Kyle before we dive right in. But dude, let's get into the weeds of it. What were your first thoughts about this film?
I was like, am I in a Marvel film or a sci-fi Star Wars film? Dude. It had a lot of Star Wars vibes to it.
The Force is strong in this one.
Dude, I totally feel you on that. There was Kang had some Darth Vader moments. There's definitely some episode 4. And then even the prequels, episode 2 type of vibes.
With the army. And then felt like Tatooine-ish out in the desert.
Yeah, safe to say the director of this film was a huge fan of Star Wars.
Yes.
But it's interesting that you bring up that there had so many parallels. I felt like it drew from a lot of different films, but its overall essence, did you get a vibe that you're okay, this is the main message is trying to get across for this film? Or were you kind of maybe this is just kind of one of those bridger films, if you will?
I had two main vibes. It felt like a family goes on vacation and then jumps back into the real world. And then it also felt like a Kang movie with some ants.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe some of this film, because it definitely jumped all over the place. It had different plot lines that it was trying to pull together, and some of them felt not as pulled together as they should be. But before we talk about kind of some of the stuff we didn't like, what is the stuff you did like from this film? What was whether it's a favorite scene, your favorite character, favorite costume, what was something that just blew your mind, or was dang, this is why I came to this film?
I really like the quantum realm. I know some people having bad reviews and feedback on it, but I thought it was a cool new thing in Marvel. Just exploring this new world that we're in and these new characters and just different species and whatnot. And then we can't go much further without talking about how incredible Kang was. Really loved Jonathan Majors. Phenomenal job.
I am Kang!
I'm really excited for what's to come.
Yeah, he absolutely bodied that role, and I totally agree with you in terms of the quantum realm. I've always only thought of it as that one initial space where they were trapped, but not having that such expansive worlds and all different types of peoples. So I thought that was really cool that they did explore that. And yeah, dude, Jonathan Majors, the range of him as an actor was just dang, these next few movies are going to be absolutely lit. I will say also, I got to give some kudos to Paul Rudd. His Antman, I feel each movie he's consistently gotten better, not only with the sizing up and sizing down, but actually fighting with it. One of the big fights, he was going in and out of small to huge when he was fighting Kang. And I was bro, that was so dope that they could bring that to the big screen, and it really shows that, like, hey, he understands the tech and how to use it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It talks a lot about the growth of him and his powers, because remember in the first movie how much of a struggle that was.
You dive through the keyhole, Scott. You charge big, you dive small, then you emerge big.
Yeah.
Get big or go small or go from big to small, and it seemed like it was pretty seamless in this one.
Yeah, so that was pretty dope. I did like, so first kudos and congrats to you. So my boy Kyle actually got recently engaged. So Courtney, do not get mad at him when I say any of this. But I was like, Catherine Newton as Cassie. I was like, bro, like, all right, she's kind of cute. She could have actually, she may have, I don't know if she would have cracked the top 10 of my Super Bay list. And for those of you who haven't listened to that episode, go ahead and check out our Valentine's Day special where I go ahead and rank my top 10 Super Bays. But she's kind of cute, and she could potentially be the next Ant-Man, that next iteration, but she needs to work on her humor if she is going to be it. There are some things that just fell super flat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these recent movies have been that changing of the guard from like the initial person to the next person. And I feel like one of those main dynamics was Ant-Man with Cassie. It just was so interesting. Like, I know he missed 5 years of her life, but sometimes it felt like he didn't know her at all. And like, I'm like, this is your daughter. Like, how do you not know some of these things? I get you missed 5 years, but you didn't miss her entire life.
Yeah, it was kind of weird how they bumped it like 12 years, because in the first film, what is she? She is like 5, so she should have got out if the time lapse had worked or the snap had worked correctly. Yeah. She should have been like 12 and not like 17, 18.
That is a good point. Like, what? Remind me how much later this is set after Endgame.
So I want to say this is like a few years. I want to say a few years. Yeah, because Ant-Man, he's got his book, and we also
the book was great.
Yeah, the book. He had a scene where he was just like reading in front of these kids, and it's just like, I don't know, Paul Rudd just like makes that scene. I don't know, just as an actor, he's just hilarious. It's like, be sure to look out for the little guy. But yeah, so I think that was good, but I do think it was hard to kind of totally place a timeline, because in that prologue, they had like just bundled it all together so fast. It's like, oh, Hope got her company back. This. Yeah. And you're like, all right, well, what do we kind of like build from that? And I do understand it's like they're trying to balance time actually in the film versus, and they don't want to have like totally useless stuff, but you don't want to have like a 3-hour film where you're like, ooh, this could probably be like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Not gonna lie, it's kind of a shot at the Batman. I love that movie, but it could have been solid 15 minutes.
We got going quick. We were down in the quantum realm within like 10 minutes, I felt like.
Yeah. And when we got in there though, and sorry fam, we're about to kind of transition into some of the stuff we did not like, which we had a kind of a laundry list. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like, first and foremost, Michelle Pfeiffer's character, which was Janet Van Dyne, we had like no understanding of like why she was so fearful of the quantum realm, but she also had terrible chemistry with the Wasp. Like, the Wasp felt like a very useless character to only promote plot. She was nerfed. Like, she trained Ant-Man, and now, like, you'll see in like one of the scenes, the only thing she's doing, she can only use her buzzers. And I was like, are you kidding me? You're basically the Krillin of Marvel now.
Hack! I call hack!
What was this movie called, Najee?
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, right?
Yeah. And I was like, have some type of like real character depth.
Yeah, like, I feel like she had no story arc for someone who's in the title. She could have been Ant-Man and Cassie, Ant-Man and Kang, Ant-Man and Janet, or, whatever. anyone else. Or, but yeah, that is a huge one for me as well. I felt like she was non-existent, and then she was in the time she was in, she comes and saves Ant-Man, like in 2 separate scenes, which is really interesting.
Absolutely convenient, and it's like you don't feel like they're like have that love relationship. Like, I'd say maybe
where was
in
their
the
chemistry?
Second one? Yeah, it was like, oh well, I guess this doesn't exist. The actress Evangeline Lilly was like, oh, like we should have a Wasp film. We should have a Wasp film. I'm like, no, we shouldn't. If that is like the Wasp we're getting, I'm a hard pass on getting the Wasp film.
Yeah.
I will say also, some things kind of moved a little quick. It was just convenient plot stuff. Like Cassie, she comes into this world and somehow these people hate her in the first like 10 minutes of the scene. And then somehow in the end, after like knowing her for all of like 3 minutes, are like, let's all rally and try to attack this conqueror who has like beat us up for like the past, I don't know, 80, 90 years in terms of the quantum realm, because time, of course, down there works differently than it does.
What do we call those characters? Are we calling them natives?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, they're not native to the quantum realm, but I guess we can call them that.
It was weird. And then MODOK, dude. Like, I loved him, but I hated him. So, sorry, guys. This is a spoiler alert. But MODOK is Darren from the first film. And it just felt like they tried to inject too much comedy with him instead of, like, keeping him just a bad guy. Like, have him be, like, the big bad lieutenant. Kind of hard for the hero to get through, but not impossible. And then have Kang, not just...
yeah, I agree. They really hyped him up. And we both were getting Darth Vader vibes from him, just the way, like, Kang, like, created him and brought him back to life.
Yeah.
And then he was, like, teed up as this big killing machine. I don't think I saw him kill one person or one thing.
Right? Like, that
just
whole
comic
film.
relief, the whole movie. Like, why is this thing here?
And then there seemed like there was, like, really good actors that could have had, like, much more pivotal roles, and then you got them for, like, 3 minutes. And you're like, okay, this character could be built out more. Or you have, like, no-name characters, like whoever that woman was with the staff, or, like, William Jackson Harper's character, where you're like, why are you here? Like, what purpose do you really serve?
Or the character that kept talking about holes.
Yes, right?
It felt, and I feel like this is a pun, but it felt very little for how big the stage is supposed to be for Kang.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And it felt like this movie had, like, no real consequence.
Yes, that's
like,
another one of my big ones.
Like, there was no, like, super major character changes. It was just kind of like, you could have done anything with this film, and I feel like the exact same outcome would have happened if this was the same director.
That's
like,
why I said earlier it was a family vacation.
Yeah, it's just like...
That's what happens. You go, you bond as a family, and then you leave.
Yeah, like, oh, no real change. But, I mean, we did definitely feel, I think at the end, post our initial watching, and once we started discussing it, we were like, ooh, like maybe there is some deeper thoughts to it, where he came back and we saw like the little bit of changes in the playback of the prologue scene where the dog was in like baby carriage. You had that sign, Hope's hair was different. So it's like you feel like Kang definitely did something to the timeline and the multiverse, but you're like not totally sure how. But yeah, so before we go ahead and give our grades, we got to talk about those end credit scenes, man. Like,
let's do it.
Which one were you hyped about more, the first one or the second one?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like usually there's one that's like very important and then one throwaway end credit scene, but I feel like both of these were massively important. I think I gotta say the first one though, because I think it helps frame things up and show that, oh yeah, there's more Kangs out there. And I think we needed to see that and get a glimpse of what is going on at a much higher level. But then the second one makes me really hyped for Loki season 2. So really hard to decide. What about you?
Dude, I'm so with you on that. It was super hard for me. I think I was hyped for the first one, and that's only because I was thinking of the Council of Kangs, and it's like you have Immortus, the Red Guardian, in I think it's Tet something. It's something in Egyptian, but
the Egyptian one.
Yeah. So basically, but seeing those as like some of the main Council of Kangs, and then it like pan to that scene of like all the Kangs, and it was just seeing again like Jonathan Majors dive more in depth and breadth with the character, with the various timelines and iterations of him. but I am also pumped for Loki season 2. I just don't know like what version of Kang is that, and like,
Yeah.
how does he fit in? But now it's just like, all right, gotta go ahead and mark that on my Disney Plus list for to-dos to be like, okay, watch that Secret Invasion, and then just like wait for Phase 5 to keep getting better. Like I think it was an okay start.
Yeah.
If you had to give this film a grade, and we're saying like 1, like this movie was Morbius level trash, or 10, this was just like a phenomenal film. I could go and watch this over and over and over in the theaters again. What grade would you give it?
It's tough. I feel like I've gone back and forth a lot here. I would say 6.5 out of 10.
All right.
I think I'd put it in the 15 to 20 range. Out of all the Marvel movies, we're at 31 now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Believe that?
I know, right?
What about you?
So I'd say initial thoughts, like right after the film, I'm with you. I was like 6.5 to 6.8. Like I was like, okay, like you can watch this film, but it's not anything that's like mind blowing, but it's also not bad like Thor: Love and Thunder. But I think post our discussion and the more thoughts we had about it, that's when I think it raised to like a 7.2, 7.3. So we're still kind of in that, like, it's a decent movie to watch, but it's not going to like blow your mind. But with that, like, what do you think in terms of like setting up those next phases, how this Council of Kangs will play? Like, where do you think that they'll come in and really the dynasty starts?
Yeah, I think that is my biggest gripe is that I felt the scale was too big for Antman. Like, it truly felt like I know I said this at the beginning, but a Kang movie with some ants. And then I think that's why I got frustrated when it was so easy to like take him down.
Yeah.
But I felt myself caring way more about Kang, exploring his backstory, his motives, learning more about the timeline, the multiverses, things like that. Which I guess that is the hallmark of a good bad guy, because I felt that way with Thanos as well a lot.
Yeah.
And so it just makes me really excited about what's to come, because I think Marvel hasn't really hit on a lot of bad guys. Thanos was phenomenal, of course, but it's a struggle in superhero movies to really nail that down. So really excited about Kang and learning about the variants and what's to come. And I think Jonathan Majors just did a phenomenal job. And yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. What about you?
Yeah, dude. No, I'm with you. Now, I think something that I've thought about more in terms of how they will probably enter, I think it would be like Shang-Chi 2 or the Marvels. That's where like Kang will have like more impact, I guess, if you will. But the more I think about it, I'm pumped for Jonathan Majors' character, but I feel like they maybe shouldn't have started with Kang the Conqueror as the big bad, or have him be the big bad, but like not get touched. Because like to your point, he felt like he kind of got beat too easily. Like Ant-Man is a low level Avenger. I know this would be like, oh, well, this is supposed to be his most serious film and showed that like, you know, he can compete with the best of the best, but like there is no way
especially
he should be able to.
Yeah. Especially when Kang is talking about, are you Thor? Are you the one with the hammer? Have I killed you before? Like all of this stuff. And then there's just so much hype throughout the entire movie of, oh, have you met him? Have you heard of him? A lot of talk about him and all this build up, and then just so easily gets taken down. I think that I was really pleased with the first few acts, like the first half of the movie, and then it just fell apart for me. I went in fully expecting, like we talked about, there was no consequence. I went in fully expecting some consequence. I thought Ant-Man was going to die. I thought Kang was going to escape. I thought maybe towards the end, when Hope came back to save Ant-Man, but then the door closed, I thought, all right, they're staying there. There's some consequence. No. Then Cassie magically opens a portal, which I didn't even know she could do.
Yeah, well, I know they showed that port or that like I don't know map or something in the first part, but like Janet had broke it, so I'm like, how can you fix something so fast? With it, just like I agree with you, and that like it was a film of two acts. Like the first half, you're getting really pumped. You're like, man, like this is It had some parts that you were kind of like, but at the overall, you're like, okay, this is going to be a crazy good film. And then the second half, like, how's the homie getting beat by ants? And Ant-Man doesn't even control. Like, it's the grandpa controlling them, Hank Pym. And I'm like, bro, this is ridiculous. Like, now, granted, his rage moment. When he was, like, absolutely bodying some of the natives and then his one-on-one with Ant-Man, I was like, okay, like, this is the more of the Kang we expected.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that with these next iterations of Kang, I know that he's supposed to be like more human or whatever, but I'm like, as a big bad, I want him Thanos level. I want us thinking, like remember in Infinity War when the Hulk, him and the Hulk were fighting, and the Ebony Maw was like, let him have his fun.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he just like absolutely destroys, and we were just like, oh, the power scale is different now. Like that's what I was expecting with this film. So I'm hoping when we saw that in a light, but it didn't end the way we expected.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, surely he's not gone, right? If this is truly Kang the Conqueror, he can't be dead. He can't be killed by Ant-Man. Like, what are we doing, Marvel?
Yeah, and that's why if this director, I forgot the guy's name, I'm so sorry, but if you ever end up listening to this podcast, I know you're in charge of the Kang Dynasty, please do not make the rest of the films like this. I am sorry. We need to make sure that we know how big and how powerful these Kangs really are.
Yeah, another thing that's forward-looking is I kind of came in thinking that this was going to be the movie to tie all these multiverse movies together. And again, like, it didn't. So I keep wondering what's going to connect all these movies. What started this? I think it's the Loki with He Who Remains dying. But they've been all independent of each other. And that's kind of been my biggest issue with this multiverse storyline is like, how are all these things happening independently, or are they impacting each other? What is starting first? Because there's all this talk of time. I know the release order kind of makes you feel like that's when they occur, but is that truly the way they occur chronologically, you know? And
that is a good point.
I don't know, but I'm just sitting here waiting for someone to tell me how they're impacting each other, if they're impacting each other, or if because He Who Remains dies, Strange's spell doesn't work, Chavez gets her powers, yada, 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 whatever else happens that I'm forgetting.
No, you're good. But no, that's a really good point. And I wonder, like, we do know, going back to Loki end of season 1, when the He Who Remains dies, he's like, everything is up to my way until now. And I don't know if that's maybe like the theme they're trying to portray, because since he died, now the timeline's just kind of like in all of these areas, like the multiverse doesn't make a total coherent sense. And maybe that's like their Inception overall vibe. But I do wish there was some continuity, even in like how they were trying to explain the multiverse in this film.
Yeah, I found myself wanting more of that, more of Janet's story arc. I could not remember how she got out originally. Do you know how they got her out?
So I think it happened in the second one. Somehow there was like some machine where like Ghost or whatever, and then they brought the mom back, and then the mom healed Ghost, and then it was like, oh, Hope's mom's back.
Okay, so it was vague.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's just like, I don't know. Ant-Man should have been a trilogy, and this should have been his final arc. I feel like that would have been a great, whether it was the passing of the torch, because they had a perfect moment with that portal scene to be like, okay, Scott's gone.
Yeah.
Cassie now has this burden and responsibility to take up this mantle and live up to those expectations. But Guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the film, what you loved about it, what you hated about it, and what you're most excited for. And guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating. Not only does this help keep us consistent with our content, but it also helps us know that we're curating content that you guys enjoy. We're on all podcasting platforms. So that's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Anywhere there's a podcast, Superhero Brothers are at, keeping you in the know. Also, be sure to follow us on YouTube. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button already, YouTube channel, go ahead and smash that. Or if you're listening on the podcast, go ahead and subscribe just so you guys know when we're dropping out episodes. Follow us on our socials. We got great workouts and giveaways coming up. Those are things you do not want to miss. Kyle, my man, super appreciate you hopping on and sharing your thoughts. And looking forward to having you on future podcast episodes to talk Marvel movies, man. So
would love it. Yeah. It was such an honor to be here. First ever podcast. So really pumped to come in and give you guys my thoughts.
Indeed. Awesome. Well, you killed it, man. So appreciate you. So, fam, it's your boy G-Man, and you have been listening to the Superhero Brothers.